guys, Marissa from the Neon Tea Party here. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to embroider with a back stitch, which is a great beginner stitch for learning how to embroider, and really a great way to embroider anything with any design that's kind of like a line. So embroidering clothes with your name or phrases has been really popular, and making little line drawings of simple shapes and embroidering them on fabric has been really popular. So this is a great and easy way to do that. So I have these bandanas here as examples. I'm gonna put those off to the side. So as far as what you'll need whatever you're planning to embroider. You'll need an embroidery hoop. This one I believe is 4 inches. You can use one bigger. I like using a smaller one. It's sometimes just easier to handle, especially if you're just embroidering something small. You'll need a pair of scissors. You'll need an embroidery needle with a big eye if you're using Omega Krill, which is the yarn that we're going to use to embroider today. You'll need a needle threader perhaps. This is just optional. This is just in case you have trouble threading your needle. I already said the scissors. And then as far as getting your design drawn on your fabric, you can either use a water-soluble marking pencil like this, or you can use, this is actually amazing, it's called Fabri-Solvy. I'll take it out and show you what it is. It's basically this textured sticker paper that dissolves in water, so you can draw on it, you can print out a design directly onto it, and then you stick it onto your fabric and you embroider right through it. And then when your embroidery is done, you just rinse the whole thing underwater and it will dissolve. So this is really awesome, and usually I like to use this especially because you can erase or draw directly over any design that you're putting together, and you don't have to worry about mistakes showing through like on fabric. But if you use a water-soluble marking pencil, it'll end up coming off just under some water anyway. So here I've just written out what I want my design to be today, Peace, Love, and Neon, and I just use this water-soluble pencil. So I'm going to put this stuff to the side for now. I'm going to quickly show you how to get your fabric into your embroidery hoop. So you just want to twist, like unscrew the little screw, not all the way, you want to leave it on, but just enough to loosen it. You're going to take out your center hoop, and you're going to place your design onto that bottom hoop, and then I'm going to actually tighten up the screw a little bit before placing it on top. And then I've pushed it down just half the way here. This is a nice trick for getting your fabric on there really tautly. You can even pull your fabric a little bit while it's here. And then while it's halfway down like this, you can go ahead and tighten the screw so that it's as tight as it can go, so that the outer hoop is as tight as it can go around the inner hoop. And once you can't really squeeze it anymore, then you can push it the rest of the way down, and you can see that that's really taut. Cool. So if you're planning to leave your design in your hoop, let's say you're just making a little embroidery hoop for decoration, just make sure that your fabric is centered where you want it to be within your hoop. You could just give your fabric a little pull. All right, that's looking good. Cool. So now I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to unravel. So if you've worked with Omega Krill before, and maybe you've heard my little spiel before about Omega Krill, it's a Mexican acrylic yarn. It's really fine. It's great for so many different fiber projects, pom-poms and tassels, friendship bracelets, and embroidery. So one cool thing about Omega Krill for embroidery, so I'm pulling from the center of the skein here. I'm just gonna set it off to the side. But one cool thing about Omega Krill with embroidery is that it's a 3-ply yarn, but the plies are all separated. So depending on how like thick you want your embroidery to be, it could either be, you could use all 3 strands, you could use just 1, 2, as many as you want. So it makes it really easy to settle on the thickness. I am going to use all 3 today just to make it easily visible on camera, but play around and see what you like. So you can start by cutting about an arm's length. I'm measuring off camera right now, but about an arm's length of yarn, maybe a little bit longer. And then we're going to thread it onto our needle. So if you've never used a needle threader before, all you do for a needle threader is you're going to take your needle threader, which is this little wire loop, and you're going to insert it into the eye of your needle. Hopefully you guys can see this. I know it's very small and delicate. And then you're just going to take your yarn or your thread. If you're using embroidery floss, that's the most common for embroidery. You're going to thread it into the needle threader, and then you're going to gently pull the needle threader so that the yarn pulls through that loop. So that's how to use the needle threader. And you're going to want to leave yourself a pretty long tail just to avoid the yarn coming off of your needle. And then for the end, I'm going to show you guys a nice reliable knot. And then I think I'm actually going to snip off the knot to show you guys a different way to catch your tail as you're embroidering. So you can choose, maybe start with the knot, and then as you get more comfortable with embroidery, you can try the second method that I'm going to show you. But if you do want to add a little knot to the end of your yarn, you can start by just making a regular single knot. Don't pull yet. So you have the little loop there, and then you could just take the end of your yarn and wrap it around the loop a couple times. So I just wrapped it around and inserted back into the loop about two more times. And then if you gently pull, you get this nice, fat, thick knot like that. But as I said, I am going to show you guys a different way to secure your yarn or your floss when you're embroidering that doesn't include a knot. So I credit my good friend Jessie Katz Greenberg for teaching me this method. She's the one who taught me embroidery in the first place. So before I get to catching the end of your yarn to secure it, I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a premise on the back stitch, again, which is the stitch that we're learning here today. And so with the back stitch, you are basically going to be, well, the first stitch, I like to just do one regular stitch on the top of the surface of the fabric. And then for every stitch after that, you're actually going to be jumping ahead a space on the underside and then stitching backwards. So your needle will come up ahead and you'll pull through, and then you'll actually go back a stitch to make your little stitch going backwards. So anyway, this will make a lot more sense in a second. So you're just going to start by picking where in your design you want to start. You always want to start at like a very clear starting or end point for this peace sign. Let's see, we're going to do a circle down. Let's just go down to make this easy for you guys to see. So I'm going to start by entering exactly where I want my stitch to begin. And pull through. And make sure you leave yourself that tail. See, my tail got a little short. Just catch that tail with your finger on the back end. We're gonna come back to this in a second. Just anchor that, make sure it doesn't pull through. Okay, so like I started to say before, we're gonna start with our first stitch, going ahead, entering our needle from top to bottom. And as far as your stitch length, you can change this based on, or decide this based on mostly like how delicate your design is. So this is pretty big, so I could keep my stitches a little bit longer. But if you're doing something more delicate, your stitches are going to want to be a little bit shorter. So I'm going to go ahead and enter there, pull through. Cool, so we have our first stitch. And like I said, that's the only forward stitch we're going to be doing. And now we're going to be skipping ahead one stitch length and bringing our needle up from the bottom through our fabric and pull up. And as we pull this first back stitch through, you see the tail that we have here at the beginning. We're just going to tuck it into the loop as we're pulling that loop down. So I just threaded the tail into that loop, and now I'm going to finish pulling it now with that end caught into the loop. So we're just going to keep catching that little tail in the loop on the back as we go, and that's how we're going to secure that tail. So now I'm going to stitch back in, going backwards. So this is why it's called the back stitch. So I'm going to enter into the point of that little entry point of our first stitch. I'm going to enter again for our back stitch. Ta-da! And if you're using Omega Krill, you might just want to be conscientious about the 3 separate strands and just make sure that they're all evenly pulled so you don't have any little loops sticking up. And that's pretty much the entire thing. So I'm going to show you guys that back stitch again. So we're going to be skipping ahead one stitch length. We're going to slowly pull, leaving that loop. Let's catch that tail as we go. Okay, the tail is tucked into the loop. Pull through. And now we're going to enter back into the end of that second stitch and pull through. And let's do another one. Jump ahead a stitch length, pull through. Let's catch the little tail. And enter in the end of the last stitch and pull. And so that's probably sufficient to catch that little tail there. I would maybe do one more just to secure it. But then after that, you don't have to worry about that little tail and you could just keep going with your back stitch. peace sign embroidered here. Just tighten that up again. Okay, so I'm just gonna show you guys how to tie off your yarn or your thread at the end. So what we're gonna do is we're going to flip over our piece, and we're just going to take our needle and we're going to go under any nearby stitch, and we're going to pull through and just leave yourself a little loop. Don't pull through all the way. So you see I have a little loop here, and then take your needle, go right into that loop, and then, got caught on something. Then you can pull it nice and tight and you have a knot. If you want, you can do that a second time if it doesn't feel super secure. So I'll just do it again anyway so you could see. Just go under a nearby stitch, pull through, leaving a little bit of a loop, enter your loop with your needle, and pull to tighten. And then you can just cut it off. And that's how you do a back stitch. I'm going to continue with my little embroidery here. So I'll pop a little picture in at the end when it's done. If you like this video and found it helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave any comments below, and be sure to subscribe to the Neon Tea Party's YouTube channel and check out our other awesome craft tutorials.